Okay. Here we go. Yep. We are live. Yep. Kind of a lot going on. The new year's already off to a rocking start, that's for sure. Wow. It's quite a press conference. Yep. That was good. That was really good. Mhm. Okay. Okay. All right, and it's dry, so we're definitely doing road patrol later. I may do we may do everybody road patrol tonight. Working plan, and then Friday, Saturday, subscriber only. But tonight, maybe everybody. But who knows? Maybe there'll be a scene this afternoon. Folks, just when I thought that it would be impossible for a governor to be more incompetent than Governor McKee, the governor of Louisiana says, hold my beer. Wow. I mean, I think that's pretty significant. The two of them served at the same military base. All right, we are standing by. We'll bring you up to speed on the latest. Whew, what a 24 hours this has been. Happy blanket New Year, everybody. All right, right now, actually, as we speak, we are live. We're going to be live on the radio Un Momento. We are live on Facebook. We are live on X. And we're live on YouTube. Yep. Folks, while the others are not live, like down the dial, we continue to be. Yes. There it is, folks, at 106. May I be the first, well, I'm not going to be the first one, to wish you happy new, what a new year. We're already off to a start. Wow. Is there any way we could move up the change in administrations a little bit sooner? Now, right now, while the rest, I admit, I was in my vehicle earlier, and what did I hear? Down the dial, running an old press briefing from last year, despite the fact right now the country is on the highest security alert since 9/11. We're going to tell you about that. We'll also give you the latest. Folks, this portion of our program, again, though, right now, and I want to be very clear, it's Thursday, January 2nd at 107. And I want people to understand the reason why that I am stressing that and letting you know is because right now, a lot of local media are running things from 2024. We're not. We're live. We're live today. We'll be live. We may be live this afternoon. We'll definitely be live tonight. And we will be live tomorrow as well. You know why? Because, as I say, the news doesn't stop. I get some people like, hey, goodbye. Have a great weekend. See you whenever. Yeah, guess what? It doesn't work that way. But this portion of the program, folks, Happy New Year to everyone from the Cohasset Inn, 226 Cohasset Avenue, West Warwick. Lunch, dinner, drinks in the lounge. They have the market at Cohasset. They may have a couple of mugs left in the market at Cohasset. It's a gift with purchase. What does that mean? It means if you spend $20 and they have prepared food, they have gourmet food, they have fresh bread, they have delicious soups. Spend $20 at 2 o'clock. I'll call the Cohasset Inn and see if they have any mugs left. Limited edition Road Patrol mugs designed by our friend Carol, who's done a fantastic job with the command center in Warwick. Breakout job at the command center in Warwick. But the Cohasset Inn. Folks, they're open, they're reliable, they're dependable, it's delicious food. What I like is it's such a big restaurant. You can spread out. I have this thing, I don't like to hear people eating their meal. I certainly don't like to hear people from other tables eating their meal. So, but they also have the lounge. And again, the market at Cohasset, 226 Cohasset Avenue, West Warwick. And remember, that is the spot if you want to, if you're having collation lunch. Now, I want to mention, first of all, everyone, happy New Year. What a New Year's Day this was. And see, I have different New Year's resolutions like everyone else. My New Year's resolution is I don't have time for nonsense. Nonsense takes up time. You know, a lot of people don't realize that. Whenever people fire questions at me, sometimes people message me on social media and they're asking a question. What they don't even realize is what they're actually asking for is your time, because it takes time to reply to people. So one of my New Year's resolutions in 2025 is I don't have time for this nonsense. And the same thing with, I don't get people. If you don't want to be on one of our pages, then don't be on the page. But you don't put something, and we don't need that. And I try to say to people, would you have a guest in your home who comes in and spits on the floor and then starts, disrespecting your home and family? The answer is no. No one reasonable would. So, people that do that and knock it in different ways, maybe that flies in other places. We don't have time for it. I assure you, we don't have time for it as our platforms continue to grow. But stop it and see them at the Cohasset Inn. Now, I'm not going to mention any names. Yesterday, I couldn't believe what I was watching with that press conference. And that Senator Kennedy, I get that he's a Republican. And in the past, sometimes I've liked the guy. That press conference yesterday was a disaster. And they had to walk it back. Something that has to change and will change in America, I believe, in 2025 is people are tired of these DEI hires. These DEI hires. What is DEI? Look it up. Diversity, equity, inclusion. That FBI agent yesterday that was in charge of running the press briefing shouldn't have been in charge. It started with 6:00 in the morning yesterday when she announced that there was no terrorism involved. Then they had to walk it back. That press briefing, I mean, as bad as Governor McKee is, and he is, the mayor of New Orleans, the governor of Louisiana, that police chief in New Orleans, they're incompetent. What you're seeing is this is the fallout when you have people in positions of power, elected officials. They're not leaders, but they don't know, they're not competent. And that's what you're seeing right now. New Orleans has these mechanisms. I'd call them a barrier. They're called ballers. And they're, the concrete plates that come up in the middle of the sidewalk. New Orleans has them. Well, why weren't they using them? Oh, well, they don't work. That's such a local government reaction. In the private sector, well, let's get them working. Well, you see, when people have the beads from Mardi Gras, they fall into them. And so sometimes they get stuck into work. I can assure you the head of that company is there today. Sheer incompetence. I watched it yesterday. They were saying there were multiple suspects. It was a terror cell. They have to walk it back. There's going to be major lawsuits in New Orleans, and there should be major lawsuits in New Orleans. There have been other terror attacks around the world where the terrorists ride up on the sidewalk and plow into people. And now, all right, I'm going to give you the latest, but I'll also give commentary with this. Now, first of all, I'm looking at, hold on, let me close out that. That's not what I want. Hold on, here we go. The Army vet terrorists. Officials probe military link. New Year's violence rattles U.S. D.C. on alert. Of course, DC's on alert. You have the inauguration coming in. Folks, we have to get rid of these DEI hires. Now, in Rhode Island, we've had some of that, but I want to give you the latest now. That Tesla Cybertruck burst into flames at the Trump Vegas hotel. Suspect, Matthew Livelsberger, married Green Beret from Colorado Springs. Fireworks, gas tank, camping fuel used in explosion. Possible act of terror. How about Elon Musk helped track route of vehicle, provided video at charging stations? Thank you, Elon Musk, who some people are now against. Wow. Army vet terrorists, military link. You know, there's also something to be said. I want to just see the Congress on edge after a surge of threats. Swatting attacks against lawmakers. Driver killed 15, joined ISIS over the summer. Multiple divorces, financial difficulties. And what did he do? Radical Islam. Radical Islam. Once again, the common denominator. Now, closer to home at 1:14 on this Thursday, I want to give you the latest on what's going on in New Orleans. And I want to, but just finish the thought here in Rhode Island. By the way, the terrorists, because that's what he is, from New Orleans, worked for Deloitte. Gee, who's Deloitte? Deloitte is the company that Rhode Island hired that was the UHIP disaster under Governor Raimondo. And then what did Deloitte do? Deloitte should have been fired. What did they do instead? They hired former Speaker lobbyist Bill Murphy, who also happens to be the criminal defense attorney for Governor McKee. Folks, I'm not yelling, I'm not angry, but to me, this is another example of government failure, of local leaders who let people down. We need competent people. And I want to just finish the thought here. Deloitte, they're in charge of Health Source Rhode Island Bridges, where the cyber criminals that hacked into that were openly mocking them that they didn't have proper safeguards in place. And the McKee administration didn't have proper safeguards in place. I like how people saying, you know, the bridge right now, it's not as bad as it was. Listen, that's still, it's a year later, and we still don't have an answer. And I want to credit Lynn Miller, who keeps those people on their toes. We still don't have an answer. It's pretty simple. How did that bridge pass inspection? Not one person has been fired. Not one person has been terminated. Not one person has been suspended. There's no accountability. To me, Governor McKee is a perfect example of someone who should not be in the position of power that he's in. He shouldn't. He's not up for the job. And so what you face is incompetence. And what you see in New Orleans, which now I have visited New Orleans, and I mentioned this on the radio show. I've been to 4 Super Bowls. And so you talk with some of the different writers. Now, New Orleans, they host, obviously, the Sugar Bowl. It's so important for them to have the Sugar Bowl. They're supposed to have the Super Bowl next month, but they host NCAA. I mean, they have Mardi Gras. When I went to New Orleans, it was in the 90s. I was living in New York City at the time. I was not that impressed, but I was living in New York at the time. But I do understand what writers that cover the Super Bowl have told me. One of the reasons why they like New Orleans, that's one of the reasons why a lot of people like New Orleans, is it's a very walkable city. Now, when I was in, I went to the Super Bowl in Arizona. You have to drive all over the place. Same thing with Jacksonville, Houston, Miami, a lot of different places. But in New Orleans, the Superdome is downtown. You park your car, you walk to the hotel, you walk to the Superdome. So it's a very walkable city. But they are no way, like, how do they not? I can't believe, how do you not see around the world that there are terrorists striking in soft targets, areas where people gravitate, large areas? In the United States, we know what these places are. There are major cities: Chicago, Boston, New York, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Philadelphia, Miami, but then you certainly have places like New Orleans, Nashville, Dallas, definitely Las Vegas, and New Orleans. I didn't care so much for New Orleans. Now, again, if I was at a conference, we just went. I forget why we went. I just went to visit for whatever. I think just because we hadn't been there and we wanted to check it out. When I was there, it was very obvious for people in the South. They thought it was the greatest. There were people next to us in the bar that were celebrating that a guy had just gotten out of the can for whatever reason. When I was in New Orleans, the theme seemed to be natural born killers because everybody had that look. So, but I'm sure people have gone, and there are real restaurants and great restaurants, and it is, I mean, it's a major place for, like we said, they host the Super Bowl. But what you saw was sheer income. Can you imagine? You have the barriers, but you don't use them because they stick and they don't work. Kind of like a bridge. But they're going to pay now. They're going to pay big time. All of those people that are in the hospital, all of the people, the lives that have been lost. The FBI, that woman clearly was not in charge of that press conference yesterday. Folks, these DEI hires have to end. Where we really saw it locally was, well, number one, it's twofold. With the sheer incompetence, that governor of Louisiana, the guy posted a picture of himself outside of a steakhouse in the Latin Quarter or the French Quarter, whatever, in New Orleans last night. Thumbs up. What are you celebrating for? The street was still closed as a crime scene. You had 15 dead. Time and place. I get spare me the rah-rah of we're not going to let them win. That's after the fact. And I fully believe tonight for the game, they're going to have National Guard on every corner. I mean, I do believe now that it's probably the safest place in the country right now. But this is how is this going on? The guy was posting video. I don't understand any of it. I don't understand any of it other than the inauguration in DC. That's a lot of people converging into DC. And I'll tell you what this shows me. It's kind of last year, if you remember, in Maine, when we were covering the shooting in Maine. There were a lot of red flags with that guy. And the government elected officials let the people down. And that's what happened in New Orleans. Why is this it looks like Granny from the Beverly Hillbillies is the police chief there. There's no one younger and competent that you could hire as your police chief. Spare me the thoughts and prayers. I can't listen to the thoughts and prayers anymore. It's sheer government incompetence. We're seeing it play out locally. When do people have enough? Now, nationally, people said, we've had enough. That's why President Trump won the election. But spare me don't let them win and thoughts and prayers. That's so meaningless. Is there anything more meaningless than when someone puts out on social media thoughts and prayers for the victim? Like, you didn't accomplish anything with that. You need action. We are clearly under attack. When the country is under attack, you need real leaders. President Bush, after 9/11, there was never another terrorist attack on our nation while he was president. And you have to, I couldn't believe what I was witnessing with the chief of police saying, well, the terrorists outsmarted us. They won. I mean, how about the people, again, the press conference yesterday, what were they saying? Oh, there's many suspects. They come back less than 24 hours later, I was a lone wolf. They have presented a gift to all the conspiracy theorists that now are going to be saying, well, wait a minute. You said there was a terror ring. How about the people, they'd see a container. Some of those people are lucky that they didn't blow up. They thought, oh, there's a cooler. Maybe there's free beer in there. And again, it's 2:00 in the morning in New Orleans. I didn't care for the crowd. It's not my type of thing, but I understand the attraction. And people, I'm sure it's a big deal. We're going to New Orleans for New Year's Eve. Then we're going to go to the Sugar Bowl. That governor of New Orleans and that Senator Kennedy and the rest of them, we're going to hunt these people down. Why are you saying that? Why were they saying anything? What a disaster. You saw it different today. To me, the classic example of the DEI hire was Dr. Nicole Alexander Scott. I mean, during COVID, I would raise my hand at those Raimondo press briefings. I went to over 100 COVID press briefings. If you take the on-air staff of hosts down the dial, W. McKee, their main objective is to defend the incompetent McKee administration. If you add up all of the press conferences that those people attended, the answer you would come up with is 0. But, all right, be that as it may. But Dr. Nicole Alexander Scott, I would raise my hand. I'm looking at Jamestown has 2 cases of COVID. Is that correct? Yes. Central Falls has 10,000 cases of COVID. Is that correct? Apparently. Why are you treating them the same? Why was Jamestown treated the same as Central Falls? Well, because of equity, because of diversity and equity. And that's what you saw with the FBI yesterday, that embarrassing press conference that they had to walk back. Folks, this portion of our program, so are they under the impression that anyone even believes them at this point? That anyone believes them? This portion of our program, Happy New Year to everyone from Propane Plus. Folks, call them today, heating and cooling. You can depend on Propane Plus, 401-885-4209. In Massachusetts, 508-252-3359. Propane Plus, heating and cooling. They also have a very user-friendly website. Residential, commercial, you type in your zip code. It's Propane Plus. Call Propane Plus for all your propane needs, 401-885-4209, or in Massachusetts, 508-252-3359 for Propane Plus. I believe, now, number one, we are. I get the whole thing, don't let them win, and the rah-rah. I get all that. But that's when you then don't want when you don't want people to. Fear can be very choking. Fear is, as I have stated, if people don't feel safe, nothing else matters. If you're in a neighborhood and people don't feel safe living in the neighborhood, the first thing that happens is people move out. Crime drives people out. If you, as I've stated in the past, how many people have one of your parents or an older relative, and aunt, so-and-so, Gertrude or grandma, and she's lived in the same house and the neighborhood's turned over. But as soon as they're broken into, the family's like, that's it, you're leaving. So my point is, if you could have an area where you have a great school district and there's terrific facilities and so forth, but if people don't feel safe, none of it matters. Safety is first. So, they can say all this nonsense of we can't let them win and blah, blah, blah. But I come back. If people don't feel safe, and right now, yesterday was a textbook example of what you don't do. I put out on social media yesterday, the only people that should have been speaking yesterday at that press briefing was a competent member of the FBI. Boy, that changed in a hurry. Competent member of FBI, maybe ATF, I guess the chief of police, maybe the mayor and the governor. Well, I don't even know about that, but people are tired of this political correctness, and there's one religion that's always associated with this nonsense. Channel 12 headline. I want to give credit to 2 Republicans. Channel 12 headline, the U.S. Army veteran who drove a pickup truck into a crowd of New Year's revelers has posted videos. So Brian Newberry, elected Republican Rhode Island State House, but why does this not read radical Islamic terrorists who murdered several people? And that's Channel 12. The U.S. Army veteran who drove a pickup truck. Same thing. Mike Chippendale, House Minority Leader. Channel 12, the U.S. Army veteran who drove a pickup truck, Rep. Chippendale, put his service in the Army ended in 2015. His radical anti-American terrorism was his most recent activity. Your headline is insulting. Radical terrorist who drove a pickup truck. Folks, I am telling you, the local media, what a lot of people don't mention that we certainly do is look at, and same thing, it doesn't matter whether, Rhode Island Monthly is the most extreme. And I'm not going to get into that whole thing. I've already talked about it enough. Channel 10 won't use the word terrorism. Channel 10, the team you can't trust. Investigators see about the investigation into the New Orleans attack by the Army officer. No mention of the radical Islam. Channel 10, officials said Thursday they now believe the Army officer acted alone carrying out the attack. Why can't you use the word terrorism? Team you can't trust. Wow. This has to. I don't know. I don't know what to make of the fact that you did have two guys apparently from the same Army unit carrying out these attacks. But what you saw in New Orleans, is there anyone? I don't even have to ask this question. I mean, is there anyone that actually thinks, and I want to be very clear, I'm not saying that Providence or Newport would be on the list of a potential soft target terrorist attack. Now, clearly Boston was with the Marathon bombing, and you have that Michelle Wu. But I think what's different is Boston learned from it. I'm not going to even ask the question I was going to ask was, is there anyone that has any faith that Governor McKee would be up to protecting the people of the state from a terrorist attack? I don't even have to ask that. The answer is no. Folks, I believe what people need to get serious about is these people that are in, they're elected officials. They're not, I refuse to use the word elected leaders. They're elected officials. There comes a responsibility with that. And what we have to start to do, and a loud statement was made about the nation and about people are tired of being vulnerable. And last night I watched as Biden trudged out there. At one point, the teleprompter went down and he was totally lost. Thank God the clock is ticking on that. But who would feel safe right now with everything going on? I'm not even going to fit. I mean, clearly, Governor McKee, Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee, his whole attraction to being in office, he thinks he wants to be the governor because you get to go to the URI Brown football game and sit on the 50-yard line and present the trophy afterwards. Governor McKee essentially likes being governor because he got to have Joe Mazzulla, Hendrick and grad, who's now the coach of the Celtics, bring the trophy down. He's like, that's when he's the most animated. That's not the job. Look at this cyber attack. 80% of adults in the state have had their identity compromised. Folks, don't you understand that it's complete incompetence? And that's what you're seeing in New Orleans. Now, Louisiana has often been called the Rhode Island of the South, and you saw it on full display. Now, the FBI clearly got the message. We need to get someone competent in there. This is a dangerous time that we're under right now. I'm telling you, you're not going to, the local media, and this goes for Rhode Island, Massachusetts, some element, obviously, of the national media, but how many local stories have you seen where, and I'm glad Justin Katz and I talk about this on our segment Politics This Week, where they continue to tell you, whether whoever it is, it's normally the print though. The print is where the progressive their last stand is. But how many times do they write about that the biggest threat are white supremacists? And whether it's Governor McKee or the Rhode Island State House or the local media, the biggest threat are the white supremacists. Well, I think you saw the biggest threat right there. I also want to mention, by the way, something about our military, and I do want to touch on that. But folks, I also want to remind you, Kids Club on the Pike. Now, they are perfect. I mentioned that they can host birthday parties or teen parties, but they also have before and after school programs and preschool programs. Kids Club on the Pike. Contact them. They're right on Facebook. They're located right on the Cranston-Johnston line, right on Plainfield Pike. Kids Club on the Pike. They're perfect for that. Now, they also have a number of different locations. The one I mentioned is the one right there on the Cranston-Johnston line. It's on Plainfield Pike. Kids Club on the Pike, and they can cater to all different ages. You're going to love it, and it's clean. You don't have the nonsense of these people that end up going into different places where then there's problems. You're going to love Kids Club on the Pike. But I want to mention one of the things that has to happen is locally, there's definitely a problem with former law enforcement that get involved with self-harm when they become either current or later in life. And there is, we don't always cover it out of sensitivity, much like the media don't carry and cover, a lot of self-harm situations. But something that is out there is it's current military and it's former military. There needs to be, and I'm not saying I have an answer, but there needs to be more outreach. There needs to be more invested in the mental health of many of these individuals, simply because we have trained them. They are familiar with firearms. They're familiar with explosives. And as long as, if you have a member of the military or retired military, maybe someone that, experienced some things during their tour of service. It's one thing if they're retired and everything seemingly is going stable, but look what happens when you have people that kind of go off the grid. We've trained them how to use firearms. We've trained them how to use explosives. That's a problem. Is it only these two guys? Could it be more? How many illegals are in the country right now? How many members of ISIS are in the country right now? How many, by the way, how many members of the cartel are in the country and want to just enact violence? Until we have a secure border. Now, I recognize a lot of the media wants to point out that these two individuals are Americans. And I'm not saying that that's not a problem. But it also comes back to, as I've talked about, this business of you have Governor Healy, the governor of Massachusetts, running a sanctuary state. You have Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee running a sanctuary state. Folks, what happens with these sanctuary states are levels of lawlessness. It's lawlessness. We can't have a country. We can't have a country of security where we have no idea who's in the country. We have no idea where they're from. We have no idea where they are. Also, what I think yesterday showed were those were true acts of terrorism. Granted, homegrown, but still acts of terrorism. The fact that in New York, they charged Luigi with terrorism. I didn't think that made sense at the time. It certainly doesn't stand up now when you've seen real acts of terrorism. And I like how Elon Musk said, that idiot didn't even realize the way that the Tesla is built is it all stays contained. That individual, and we'll learn more about him, but he picked that vehicle because of the affiliation of Elon Musk and President Trump. This is a, a very volatile time. And I understand that people are on edge with good reason. Do I think the Sugar Bowl would be safe tonight? Yes. I mean, right now, New Orleans probably is the safest place in the country right now. But look what it took to make it that way. I mean, these people are just, what a disaster. Total clowns. Folks, this portion of the program, if you're thinking, now it's very windy today, get your trimmed in the wintertime. JD's Lawn Care and Tree Service. That's who I use. Call them 401-441-0154. I share their Facebook page. JD's Lawn Care and Tree Service. Don't have a dangerous branch come crashing down on your home. JD's Lawn Care and Tree Service, 401-441-0154. No, I mean, I feel for those people that thought, I can't believe the sheer incompetence. Less than 24 hours later, they now come out and say, oh, it was a lone attack and everyone should feel safe and everyone should just enjoy themselves. I'm sorry, it comes off too much like the mayor of Jaws. It does. As those of you that watch Road Patrol, I mean, I don't exactly, for crying out loud, I was in Ukraine. I don't know how safe it is right now. I don't know. I don't trust them. You know, there has to be trust. There has to be trust with the citizens. Is there anyone in their right mind? And let me say this right now, at 1:40 on this Thursday, January 2nd, Happy New Year. Someone sent me a message and I will address it. I don't trust the McKee administration. I don't trust, for instance, if something happened today, tomorrow, in the next month with the bridge, the Washington Bridge now, and it somehow collapsed a little bit or something happened, I would not be shocked. God bless me. To answer that question, no, I don't trust the McKee administration. I don't think they've given us reasons to trust them because they're another group that everything they say then pans out where they have to backtrack and it's different from what they had initially said. Because then a problem with that is, to me, you get into a situation much like how the FBI today had to come out and say, on second thought, it was a lone attack. I mean, what is this? That governor and that Senator Kennedy, what was he even doing there? Boy, that FBI agent, talk about in over your head. Why was she there? That's the best they could do. At 6 o'clock in the morning yesterday, that FBI agent said, it's not terrorism. She then had an out-of-control press conference where those people, we're going to hunt these people down and there's suspects out there. And we're going to find these people and there's 3 to 4 of them. And then they wonder why people are concerned. We need, folks, what we need, we have to have accountability in the country. And it's lacking. And as I've said, no, I actually don't believe Governor McKee. I don't. But when the governor will say that everything's under control, and it's very difficult to get any type of confidence back. Is there anyone right now that has confidence in the ability of the Rhode Island officials to manage your private information after this hack, after you've learned that they were advised months ago to do something about it? The change is going to have to come from the top. What President Trump needs to do, I think most important thing to do, is to restore confidence. And for all of these people complaining about Kash Patel and the FBI and everything, to me, what you saw, that is a textbook example of what not to do. I was taken aback at that governor of Louisiana. Yeah, he feels, I feel very comfortable. Look who's walking around him. He is surrounded by Louisiana State Police and the National Guard, and he's saying, "Oh, it's totally safe." I like how Elon said the Cybertruck sturdiness. They picked the wrong vehicle for a terrorist attack. Folks, do you see that crime is they're always looking for a way around. They now use that app, Toro, and they stay in an Airbnb. Why? Because hotels, somebody could get flagged. A car rental agency, maybe they get flagged. So you have to stay vigilant. And it's something that law enforcement, listen, law enforcement is so reliant on the public officials. That mayor of New Orleans, as soon as she learned that those ballers, which serve, barriers, as soon as she learned that they were not working properly, or whoever was in charge, it should have been, listen, it's unacceptable. We're hosting the Sugar Bowl. We're hosting the Super Bowl. We need somebody in here to get these things working effectively. Well, you see, the beads, because of Mardi Gras. Well, then I don't know what, I'm not saying I know what the answer is. But it's like Governor McKee back in the spring. They were warned. They were warned that the health source Rhode Island was not secure. You know what the governor said? Well, we're focused on the bridge right now. All right, so then cyber criminals hacked in and everything was exposed. And then they took the data. What we are dealing with because of that because he had the ability to steal the election. I just don't know how. I'm waiting for Governor McKee to post something saying, the governor of Louisiana is a good friend of mine. I'm sure they are. Birds of a feather. Incompetent birds of a feather flock together. What? I can't get over that guy. That press briefing yesterday. Wow. One for the ages. We're going to hunt them down. And I'm going to the game. As there are people in critical condition clutching to life. Family flying in. Absolutely disgraceful is what it is. No, this was a monumental failure. 100%. I don't know what to make of the fact. So the two of them were in the same platoon or same unit, I believe. Let me read that. Wow. We have a major problem. The Army vet terrorists. Military link. What is happening? Wow. No definitive link found between New Orleans attack and the Los Angeles attack. FBI says. Is there anyone that actually believes that? At this point, there's no definitive link. By the way, folks, let me just say, what do you expect them to say? You don't say something definitive. Many times when we, and those of you that watch Road Patrol, we're there. The police are briefing us. They tell us what they know. They tell us what they can say. I mean, that's to me like basic 101. As I was watching that yesterday, and they were announcing definitively that there was a terror cell out there. And then they had to walk it back less than 24 hours later. That is absolutely inexcusable. They shouldn't have said that. They said, we don't know at this point. We're still investigating. Here's what we need from the public. We're investigating this. We're looking for anyone that has information about this. If you were on blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's not that tough, but this administration, I'm reading, Biden announces Liz Cheney to receive presidential medal. I don't know what to make of that. New Year's violence rattles USA. Of course it does. New Orleans attack, Las Vegas explosion comes as authorities have warned of rising threats. Listen, none of it matters. We are, as I have stated, we are so dependent on elected officials. They're not leaders. One of the again, one of the best examples is the Lieutenant Governor of Rhode Island is Sabina Matos. That's a wasted choice. McKee picked her to try to make inroads with Latino voters. That's a wasted pick. We are so, people in this state are so reliant that if you drive over a bridge, it was inspected and it's safe. You are people in the state you rely on. If you provide the state of Rhode Island with your bank account information and social security information, that the state is safeguarding that. They can't even do that right. It is laughable at the thought. Can you imagine if we ever had a terror attack? You can imagine if we had another station nightclub fire. State is so ill prepared. And by the way, I don't see anyone at the Den of Thieves at the Rhode Island State House. I don't see that even gets that. I don't. I think what we need so what am I saying? I'm saying in 2025, in this new year, we need the public. Folks, people deserve more, deserve better. And a good example is the state Senate. Those people, they're not leaders. They're union hacks, the leadership. Ruggiero and that Val Lawson. They're there for one reason, to push through union initiative agenda. It's pathetic. When do things change? This is insanity. Folks, this portion of the program, maybe you're thinking of improving your home here in the new year. AJ Drywall, Plasters Home Improvement. Call them today, 401-323-9252. They do acoustical ceilings, frame to finish basements, new homes, additions, commercial rehabs, painting, remodeling. It's a new year. Maybe you're thinking of redoing your home or office. Contact AJ Home Improvement, 401-323-9252. If you have an unfinished basement, unfinished garage, maybe you want to redo where you work, AJ Home Improvement. I share their Facebook page, 401-323-9252. Well, folks, good afternoon. Someone sent me an email that they're having a plumbing problem. Who is it that I recommended? It was Ryan contacted me on that. Called JMB Plumbing. JMB Plumbing. Plumbing, repair, and service. The dream team. Call Jimmy and Tommy. They can repair damaged water pipes. They can repair clogged pipelines. They can replace a water heater. J&B Plumbing. Call them today, 401-743-9153. I want to come back to, I don't blame people that the country is rattled right now. New Year's violence rattles the United States. Why shouldn't people feel that way? We still have the Biden administration. But on top of that, some of the people that are technically in charge should not be in charge. It's very unsettling right now. New Orleans attack, Las Vegas explosion. Authorities have warned of rising threats. This business of this isn't an act of terrorism, it's evil. We're going to get these people. Hours later, oh, well, it was just one person. Here's my problem with evil. First of all, I understand acts of evil, but my problem with elected officials using that, to me, and this is the governor or the police chief or whoever, the New Orleans police superintendent, excuse me. My problem with that is, to me, they almost act like it's an act of God that can't be controlled. That's my problem. When it's one thing if we use the word evil, and clearly someone that would do something like that is evil and an element of evil. Listen, ISIS is evil. Radical Islam is evil. But My problem with them using it is it's kind of like, excuse me, it's another example of it, not using the word like. For instance, Governor McKee, he acts as though the bridge, the closure of the bridge was an act of God that couldn't have been prevented. And that's simply not the case. He acts as though the cyber criminals hacking into, stealing the data breach, like a bolt of lightning. That's simply not the case. There were safeguards. The Washington Bridge was supposed to be inspected, and there are supposed to be safeguards with people's personal information. So I have a problem when they're thrown out as if no one could have prevented it. No one could have done anything about it. That's not the case. There are people. There were people in New Orleans. New Orleans, obviously, come on, it's a very popular place. It's a very popular city. It's along the lines of Las Vegas. It's along the lines of Miami. It's along the lines of Nashville. New Orleans is a very popular place. They're hosting the Sugar Bowl. When you're watching overseas, isn't that interesting? There's somebody that drove up onto the sidewalk and ran people down. Some bells should have gone off. My point is, there are people that their job, and they're paid to prevent that, and they totally dropped the ball and failed. Now, I don't know if there were people inside saying, we got to get these things fixed. We don't know. There was that flight. Remember, you go back to, we learned a lot after 9/11. There was someone that contacted the Minneapolis FBI department that said, this guy came in here and he just wants to learn how to steer a plane, a jumbo jet. He had no interest in learning how to take off or how to land. And that he was the 20th hijacker. Remember, there were 19 hijackers. They detained him. So it should have made its way around there. But once again, as I have also stated in the past, with the far left, they have no concern about quality of life. Jabbar posted videos on social media indicating he was inspired by the Islamic State and expressing a desire to kill. The black flag was flying from the trailer hitch. Investigators found 2 more devices during a sweep of the city, bustling French Quarter. Hidden in coolers, contained pipes and nails. He drove around barricades, got out of his vehicle with an assault rifle when confronted by police. He fired at the officers who shot back, killing him. He served in the U.S. Army for 10 years, including a 2009 deployment to Afghanistan, rising to the rank of staff sergeant. He joined the Army Reserves. Then you have the Cybertruck, rented in Colorado, arrived in Vegas 7:30, drove up and down the boulevard for an hour, pulling into the Trump Hotel, parked for about 20 seconds before it exploded. They were able to trace it through the Tesla charging station. I'm a fan of Elon Musk. That's definitely tied in. But I take exception with the New Orleans police superintendent saying, oh, this was an act of evil. I don't like that, to me, because to me it hints at nothing could have prevented it. I will say this, though, folks, and again, at 1:57, we will be doing Road Patrol Live later. We will be doing it later. When you have individuals, for instance, we learned after 9/11, we learned after September 11th. I'm not naive. I understand. If you have someone who is willing to die for the cause, it does make it more challenging. I'm not saying impossible, but it does make it more challenging. It does. If that guy was willing to go in front of the Trump Hotel in a Tesla and detonate himself, very difficult to stop that. That guy, the guy in New Orleans, if you have people, much like, from what we understand about the hijackers on 9/11, they believe the muscle didn't know that the ultimate plan was to go right into the buildings and the targets, the Capitol, obviously, and the Twin Towers. I'm not saying when you have people that are literally, it goes back to World War II and the kamikaze pilots, right? The Japanese. If you have people that are truly willing to die for the cause, I'm not saying no question about it. It does make it more challenging, but it's still not impossible. You don't help them by not having proper barriers up. So now, I do think we're in our, just to be clear, no, I don't think we're in danger here. I don't think we're in danger here in the Northeast. I don't think that nothing's 100%, but this we need the new administration in there as quickly as possible, without question. Folks, again, it's 1:59 on this Thursday, January 2nd. What a day of news. If you're listening to the radio, stay tuned. You're going to hear the 2 o'clock news. If you're watching, yes, we will be live later on Road Patrol Live. Or if something else breaks, hey, on just the other day that we had the standoff in Warwick. So listen, everybody, Happy New Year. Thank you for tuning into the Real News. We're back tomorrow on the radio at 11. Stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news.